Hello and welcome back for another VMK in the game development series. This VMK will show you how to port your game engine code from Visual Studio 2003.net to either using Visual Studio 2005 Express or 2008 Express. We'll start by porting our code over to 2005 Express. If we take a look at our code, we've been developing inside a Visual Studio project / game engine. And here is all of our source code, and inside of the build directory we have a debug folder, and in here this is where all the compiled code goes, the libraries that we create as well as the executable. And then finally when we run, we put all of our resources into here, and configuration files go into the save folder. Before you do anything, I would recommend you take this code and back it up so you know you're not going to be changing your original source code that you've been working so hard to develop. Once you have this backed up, if you are using Visual Studio 2005 Express, you'll notice that all the source code by default will reside underneath the Visual Studio 2005 folder. Inside here, there's a projects folder, and this is where all the source code should go. So inside here, let's create a new folder. We'll call it Game Engine. And then inside here, this is where we're going to take all of our source code and put it in there. Now, what is it that we really need? We only need the following code. The debug folder gets compiled whenever we run our compiler, and the build folder is the output of all of our source. So it's going to get created automatically. So let's just take all of this and copy it over to our 2005 Express directory for our projects. The other thing we'll need to do is go into the build directory, debug, and we'll have to copy over the resources and the save folder, but we won't do that just yet. Now that we have our code located in the proper spot, let's go into Visual Studio 2005 Express and take our old project and convert it to be using the new 2005 compiler. From here, we want to select File, Open Project / Solution. That should start you up in the Visual Studio 2005 directory. If not, just navigate to there and go under Projects, Game Engine. Here, you want to select the Game Engine solution and then hit Open. A wizard will pop up because it recognizes that the solution was created in an older version of Visual Studio. So just hit Next. You select yes, you want to create a backup before converting, and then hit Finish. You don't need to see the conversion log, so we'll just close that off. Everything's been imported in here, so we see we have our game engine, our math library, our object library, and our scene library. Most of the code gets ported over correctly, but there are a few things you'll need to tweak to make the code compile. To start off, let's just try to do a build of the solution. You'll notice that you're going to get a lot of warning messages, things saying that we're using unsafe functions or that the function has been depreciated. We'll just wait for this to finish. Okay. So if we take a look at these messages, we see we have, for instance, VSN printf was declared depreciated. We also have sprintf has been declared depreciated, and so on. A lot of these functions which we were using in 2003.net are now considered depreciated in the 2005 edition. What that means is Microsoft realized, well, these functions could be a possible source for hackers to enter into your programs. So to prevent that, what they've done is they've taken all these depreciated functions and created versions of them that are more safe. And we can go and see these functions if we just highlight the function, hit F1 on the keyboard, and it'll bring up MSDN, where you can find additional help. Now that didn't quite bring up what I was expecting, so let's just go under here. We want VSN printf. So underneath the index here, just type in that function, and we see here that at the top it says this function is used to write formatted output to a pointer to a list of arguments. These functions are depreciated because more secure versions are available now. See these. So to get rid of these warnings, what you should do is go in and replace anytime we're using VSN printf with VSN printf_s. The only difference here is there is this buffer size parameter added into the function call. So anytime we call this guy, all we need to do is just add in an extra number for the size of the buffer that's going to be accepting our parameter. So for instance, let's take a look at one of these. This one here, for instance, we're taking this buffer of 1024 size, and we're accepting this parameter from this function, formatting it, and putting it into here. Well, now, to get rid of that depreciation thing, we can just put an underscore s at the end, and you see that the parameters that we pass in here are exactly the same, except we need to add in this other one. So the second parameter here, just specify it to be either 1023 or 1024. It doesn't really matter because they're going to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to use 1023. And then that's basically it. We can save this and then recompile it, and you'll notice that that one warning message disappears. So that's how you get rid of your warning messages. Those aren't that problematic. They're not going to stop your compiler from continuing on. There will be a few bugs in the actual compilation which you will need to fix. To find them, all you need to do is build your program 2 times in a row. The first time, you'll see a listing of all the warnings, but the second time, the compiler doesn't show the warnings because it knows that you've already seen them. It only shows the errors. So here we go. Here's the listing of all the errors that we were able to find. According to this, under the geometry cylinder.cpp, undeclared identifier v. The compiler for 2005 Express has decided to change the way the scope of variables work inside of a for loop. Here we were using the v parameter, which was defined up above in this for loop. But now that v parameter is no longer visible outside of the for loop, which means that over here we're going to have to declare a new integer called v. So we just add in int in front of the v parameter here, and that should fix that problem. What was the next error? That should also fix these things here. And oh yes, over here under GameOpenGL.cpp, we're inside of the constructor. What we're doing here is we're defining the function pointer to point to either getTimePerformanceHigh or getTimePerformanceRegular. With the 2005 Express Edition compiler, you need to be explicit when defining that this is a function pointer. And to do that, we just need to add the address command in front of GameOpenGL, and that will fix these 2 error messages down here. So let's save that and recompile our code. Okay, let's see what we have now. Just build it twice to get rid of the warnings and just take a look at the error messages. Looks like everything succeeded, so we could go and start running it. However, if you try to do that, you'll notice that you're going to get all these error messages here saying resources fonts not found, next one, and so on, and then you get a assert failure. Well, you're getting these because, remember, when we moved our code over from the old location, which was here, we didn't copy over our resources and our save folders. So let's go and do that. We're going to take those guys, and we need to put them inside of the build path under debug and in here. Again, we can run our program, and this time we're still getting the same thing. So that tells me that there's something wrong with the way that the paths are set up for our project. If we go into our directory structure here for 2005, let's just take a look at what we have. Oh, the other thing we shouldn't forget to do is, oh, wrong folder. We need to copy over the testing.lvl because we're going to be needing that when we run our program. But that's not related to this current bug. Okay, let's take a look at our project settings here. If we right-click on SceneLib and go under Properties, let's just take a look to see where all of our libraries are getting compiled to. Under the General tab here, we have that the output directory is under Debug. Okay, we can leave that, that's fine. The librarian specifies where we want to be outputting the library, and it's currently set up to be build output directory scene lib. So that seems fine as well. Let's go take a look at the object lib. He looks fine here, and general debug, that's fine. The math, debug, and librarian, this is fine. The game engine here, let's take a look at him. Under the general tab we have debug, that's fine. Under the linker we have build directory, output directory, this is fine. One thing that might not have carried over is the working path. Remember, there was right here under debugging, we have working directory. Here we need to specify where it is that we're going to be running our program from. We've chosen to run it from _build / bracket out directory. Let's try this out now. Oh, invalid working directory. I stuck in an extra underscore there. Let's just go and correct that. We don't need this underscore here because the output directory already has an underscore right there. Let's try this now. Alright, there we go. Our program now is starting up, and if we press the space bar, hit options, we should be able to navigate through all of our menus. And if we start the game, here we go. Here's our program up and running. So we're able to take our existing code and compile it using the new Visual Studio 2005 Express Edition. If you want to use the newest version of the Microsoft compiler, to get it, you can go under Microsoft.com, and over on the side here under All Products, bring up this menu here, and under Microsoft Developer Network, select that. That will bring you to the MSDN section of the Microsoft website. Over on the left side here, you should find Visual Studio Express. Click on that, and then that'll bring you up to this page here, where you can click on Download. And under Download, it'll bring up a page where you can choose to either do a web install, or you can do an offline install. Offline install means you're going to download a ISO image, which you can then burn to create a CD, and then install the software off the CD. If you download the web install, it'll download just the appropriate section that you're interested in and install that. What I've done is I've gone ahead, downloaded the ISO, and created a CD. Once you stick the CD in, it brings up the following screen. So from here you can choose what it is you want to install, and we're interested in Visual C++ 2008 Express Edition, so let's just click on that and wait for it to install Visual C++. First screen here will ask you whether you want to send some information to Microsoft. You can check yes if you wish, then select Next. Have a read through the license agreement here, and then select I have read and accepted the license agreement. Select Next. Then you'll want to specify which components you want to install. I'm going to leave everything turned on, so I'm just going to hit Next. And then it'll ask where do you want to install your compiler. I'm going to install it on the C drive under Program Files, Microsoft Visual Studio 9.0. Select Install. And then it'll begin downloading components if it needs to, and installing things directly off the CD. This will take a little while, so just give it some time to install all the components. The nice thing about 2008 Express Edition is that Microsoft combined the Platform SDK files directly with the installer. So you won't have to go through the extra step of having to install those files by yourself. They will get installed automatically after Visual C++ is installed on your computer. The MSDN Express library is also included with the Visual Studio 2008 Express Edition, which is great because anytime you need help, you have it right there installed on your computer. One of the options you'll see once we get this up and running is that you can make the default settings for the library such that it's going to pull information from a website if you have an active internet connection. If you don't, then it'll revert back to use the library that's already installed on your computer. This is great because if you do have an active live connection to the internet, you know that the MSDN Express library that you're looking at is going to be the most up-to-date for the version of the compiler that you're using. Let's give it a few more minutes to install, and then I'll come back to show you how to get everything up and running inside 2008. Okay, we're almost done here. It's just installing the Silverlight runtime right now. And there we go. So now it's going to say it's been installed successfully. Hit exit. And you'll need to restart your computer by the looks of it. So I'm going to pause the video now, restart my computer, and then we'll continue on with the installation. After your computer restarts, you can go ahead and click on Start and then go under Programs, Visual C++ version 9.0 and select Microsoft Visual C++ 2008 Express Edition. This is what happens when you start it up for the first time. You have to give it a few minutes just to set up the environment that it's going to be working in. When it starts up, you'll have the following screen. So in here, it's going to look very similar to 2005 Express Edition. And as you already know, I like to have my Explorer located on the right-hand side, so I'm just going to move it over to the right-hand side rather than leaving it on the left. The Start page has a bunch of interesting information here that maybe you guys will be interested in, especially the Developing Games section here. So have a read through that if you're interested, but we're here because we want to take our game engine that we've been working on and port it over to 2008 Express Edition. 2008 has a similar kind of directory structure that 2005 has. You'll notice underneath My Documents, Visual Studio 2008, you'll have a projects directory. In here, what you want to do is create a new folder. We'll call it Game Engine. And again, we're going to go back inside of the Visual Studio Projects Game Engine. This is where our source code is. And we're just going to copy over the following files and directories. Once you've copied everything over, we can go into 2008 and select File, Open, Open Project. We're going to go under the Game Engine directory and select the Game Engine solution that we've developed in 7.1, which is 2003.net. Select Open, and again we're going to get the similar kind of wizard we did in 2005. Just hit Next, select Yes, you want to create a backup, and then select Finish. We don't want to see the conversion log, so we'll uncheck that and select Close. We can go in and customize our view here. I like to have my Build button and Compile button located up here, so we'll just right-click in here, select Customize, and under Commands, Build, we have our Build Selection and Build Solution. I'm going to select Build Solution and put it to the left over here. I'm going to select the Cancel, put it over here, and I'm also going to select the Compile and put it in between there. Let's close that off. Now let's go and do a build of our project. Again, you're going to see a lot of those warning messages popping up saying that our function calls have become depreciated. Let's just do a second build to get rid of all those warnings and take a look at just the error messages. This is new in 2008. Let's take a look to see what this is. I don't recognize this error at all. As a matter of fact, this is the first time I'm running 2008. So let's go and investigate what this means. Bring up the help by hitting F1, and here it is asking you whether you want to use the online help as the primary resource or whether you want to use the local help as your primary. I'm going to choose the online version. Under index here, we'll just type in our error code, D9035, and see what Microsoft has to say about this. Okay, it says that this specific option has been depreciated and it's going to be removed. Well, let's see if we can remove it from our compiling so that we don't actually need to compile with this flag. This error is coming from the object lib, so select object lib, go into properties, And let's take a look to see if we can find out where it's trying to access WP64. Under the command line, you should probably see something called WP64. Here it is here. So that means that it's an option that's being selected somewhere within here. If we go under the General tab, we see we have Detect 64-bit portability issues. Yes, WP64. Well, we don't want to use this anymore, so select to use No and hit Apply. That should get rid of this first warning. We don't have to worry about it from now on. We have the similar kind of warnings here with all the sprintfs. I've already showed you how to change those. It's just a matter of going in here and typing in _s and then passing in that extra parameter 1023. We also have the similar bug here with the integer value being defined inside of the for loop. Again, we can just define a new integer called v. So that'll get rid of that bug. And, well, let's go rebuild. You should definitely take the time to clean up all these warnings, because having warnings inside of your code makes your code kind of messy, and it's hard to find error messages whenever you need them quickly. But I don't have the time to go through and remove all these warnings, so I'm just going to leave them for you to take out. We have this WP64 message again, but this time it's coming from our game engine. So again, we can go under Properties, under General C++, here it is again, select No. As a matter of fact, while we're here, might as well select the math library, remove it from here, and also select it from the scene library. Let's remove it from here as well. Okay. We get the same error messages that we got before inside 2005 with our function pointers. So to correct these, just add the ampersand sign in front of game OpenGL, save that, and rebuild. Three succeeded, none failed, and one is up to date. So that means that everything's ready to go. Again, before we start running our code though, you should go in here and under the build directory, under debug, you need to copy over your files that are located from your source. So we need the resources, the save, as well as the testing.lvl. Copy these over. And I suspect that the paths may not have been set up correctly for your working directory. So under, let's select Game Engine, select Properties, under Debugging, working directory here, you need to specify /build/ $out directory, like so. Now let's go and run it, and if everything's right, it should run, and there we go. So hit the space bar, select options, just make sure that the menus are working. They seem fine. Start up our game, and there we go. We have our character moving around in the world, all working with the newest 2008 Express version of our compiler.